And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
If there are questions, Ms. Merrill. Representative Petit.
Thank you, Ms. Merrill. Just because I want to understand, I know that some of the issues around the law are complicated, immigration law is complicated, but so the department's position, if I understand it right, is that we're not allowed under federal law to GA to asylum seekers, but you're saying that your understanding is different than that?
Yeah, so I've heard it stated that the reason that this proposal is being put forward is because this is required under federal law. And that's just not the case. It's not required. What the federal law says is that the legislature needs to act affirmatively one way or the other. And so there's an argument to be made that we have acted, the legislature has acted affirmatively, but regardless of that, it's now going to be decided because the question is before you.
So one way or the other, no matter what the federal law says, or what the federal law says is something that we can affirmatively determine. Is that right? And based on previous actions of the legislature, you think arguably we've actually determined that. And even if it's determined that we have it, we can do it now. There's like a number of avenues for us, to make this decision. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct, and I think you've heard from a lot of people today who have provided a lot of good reasons to continue doing what Maine has done and providing this assistance.
Thank you.
Representative Sanders.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here today. Maine is only one of 5 states, correct? Do you know what the other 4 are that allow GA assistance?
Off the top of my head, I don't want to get that wrong. I do have lists of other states that provide these kinds of benefits. I believe some states that have much larger, significant populations of immigrants, like California, New York. But I mean, I can get those lists for the committee if that would be helpful.
That would be really helpful. And then, of course, I know the Equal Justice Partners, I mean, you have access to a ton of resources. And if you would be able to provide the work session for some of the states who do not offer general assistance and do have immigration programs within, if they have separate immigrant programs separate from that, or what do other entities do, that would be really interesting to me.
Yeah, because you raise a good point. It's hard to make comparisons, between states, among states, when it comes to general assistance, because as you know, you've heard, general assistance is really a housing program. The most of the help goes to support housing, and in other states there are other housing supports that we don't have here in Maine. So it ends up falling to the general assistance program. So it is hard to make comparisons between states because some states do provide help that's called something other than general assistance, but we can see what we can pull together to provide you with information that would be helpful as you think.
If you could, that would be good, because, I mean, we already have, obviously immigration is a very big thing for our country, and there are many states, more than 5, who obviously have immigrants, legal and illegal asylees, refugees, etc., living in them. So it would be interesting to see across the spectrum what maybe is offered in other areas that would cross-reference with maybe something we already have, maybe that could be implemented, which may be more beneficial to our state.
And another point is that that fits in with your thinking, I think, is that Maine, we're not alone in seeing an influx of asylum seekers. There are asylum seekers who are settling in different places across the country, other places that are also considering and thinking about working with these issues. So I don't know if that information would be helpful as well, just to get a better kind of a sense of settlement and the fact that it's not just Maine that's seeing a lot of people seeking asylum. It's there are different cities across the country who are experiencing this.
Any information on maybe a partnership with the federal government or movement on the federal government level to essentially help with what is becoming an unfunded mandate, if you will, by giving these having these folks immigrate to our country, but then yet not partnering with any kind of financial support.
Yeah, we hope that the federal government will take more responsibility and the state will continue to take some responsibility as well. So thank you.
Representative.
Thank you. Again, just to clarify that, I do think there is a perception or something to have the idea that somehow Maine is an outlier in terms of asylees coming to our state. So for the work session, it would be helpful for me to get any information you've got to, give a little bit of perspective on that. But above and beyond that, Robin, no matter where a person comes from, if they meet the eligibility requirements for general assistance, they're entitled to get general assistance under the partnership between the states and municipalities, correct?
That's right. General assistance is a needs-based program.
Right.
So if people can show that there's the need, then
They're entitled
municipalities
to
are required to provide it.
So I'm going back to this conversation, this dialogue that happened, many hours ago now, when the commissioner was testifying. So again, I know we have to set priorities. I know the budget is about setting priorities, but if a person is entitled, but we need to fund a GA program based upon what the needs are of the people who are eligible for GA. And we need to fund services for people with disabilities based upon what those people's needs are. And the idea, again, of positioning, prioritizing one over another, I guess is one way to come to that. But at the end of the day, both are obligated, right, to receive services from the state. We need to fund a GA program based upon the needs of people who need GA. We need to fund other services throughout, in our main care program based upon what those needs are. Isn't that basically the situation that we're in?
Yeah, eligibility determinations are made as according with law to the law, not based on some incentive that's put in place.
Right. And budgeting decisions need to be, to a certain extent, based upon a determination of what those needs are.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Merrill.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next I have fellow man and Lucian Grant Meyer, Alex Wheelwright, then John Bradley, then Jim Devine. Good afternoon.
Yeah, I greet you with high respect, everybody. And I was a little bit worried before I came here if I have to be stuck on my text or if I can really summarize that like in less than 1 minute. And I will go for that. And my testimony really is summarized in 3 ideas: dignity, humanity, and democracy. My name is Philemon, and I'm coming from Burundi. I have been in charge over there, and I had to leave my country because I was threatened. I think about that, I was threatened because of the decision I made as a judge. So you can have a picture of what's going on in that country. Otherwise, I've been here for 4 years now, and I'm a member of MERC, which is a main Media Rights Coalition, and I'm also a member of MPA, Many People's Alliance board. And I think that dignity is something, for me, is the philosophy behind the fact of giving general assistance to people. And when you enter Maine from New Hampshire, there's a big sign on the right hand, which is saying that this is how life should be. And I'm gonna please you, I'm gonna please everybody, please keep Maine the way life should be. Thank you.
And thank you very much for being here today. Thank you. Alex Wheelwright, welcome.
Thank you. And thank you all for your patience. I'll try to be brief. My name is Alex Wheelwright, and I am here representing Bread for the World. I'm going to be reading testimony dictated to me yesterday by a Burundian asylum seeker who lives in Portland, who was all jazzed up and ready to come here and testify herself, and she was advised not to do so and to have her name retracted by her asylum lawyer. So my name is retracted, and I'm from Burundi. My family and I are Tutsis from a majority Hutu country. I was getting threatening calls in the middle of the night, and the police would drive by my house every day. I became afraid, and my youngest daughter and I came to Portland 1 year ago because they said Maine is very beautiful, and it's a state that helps people. I worked 27 years as an accountant in Burundi, but here I rely on general assistance until I can find work. In return for this assistance, I do workfare, helping out at the Preble Street Soup Kitchen and the Root Cellar. When I find work and get off GA, I want to continue to do these things because it is important to me that I contribute back. My daughter's English is better than mine, and she recently found work in customer service. She no longer needs or gets GA, and I'm very, very proud of her for this. My goal is to find work so I can support my family. I do not get food stamps. General assistance is the only way I can feed myself until I find work. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, and please tell relate to see we appreciate your testimony. John Bradley, then Jim Devine, then John Emil Luvana, and then Toma Bakula. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you, to all the esteemed committee members. I've given a longer version of my testimony, as well as testimony from Godefroy Anisi Wachiba, who is actually working, but wanted to make sure his testimony got in. Again, my name is John Bradley, and I am testifying as a member of the Maine Statewide Homeless Council, which represents organizations across Maine. We are extremely concerned about policy and funding changes included in the Department of Health and Human Services budget that will negatively impact our shared goal of ending homelessness in the state of Maine. The Council's plan to end and prevent homelessness emphasizes exit from shelter to housing and services, but acknowledges that shelter is the front door for homeless families, youth, and single adults. In Portland and other service centers, the demand for general assistance is high, as these are cities where there are opportunities for work, housing, public transportation, services, and yes, shelter. That individuals and families from communities across the state end up in Portland should not be surprising, nor should the city's commitment to keep the front door open and provide shelter each night to all who need it. Portland's General Assistance Program spends most of its funds on assisting with housing so that families and individuals can start to rebuild their lives. The Statewide Homeless Council has long questioned the lack of uniformity with which GA has been administered across the state, concerned that it has often been unavailable to households in need in some Maine communities, a major factor in the high numbers in Portland, Bangor, and other service centers. Increasing the cost of general assistance in service centers will not only place added stress on them, but will result in even less availability of services for those who come to these communities from other parts of the state of Maine. The proposed changes undermine an essential part of our state's safety net and will result in a step back from our goal to end homelessness. I want to focus on two populations. The first is the aging population. At shelters, we are seeing more and more older people with chronic medical conditions unable to obtain supportive housing that could give them the care that we would wish for our parents as they age. Any changes that decrease the availability of assistance in obtaining prescription medications, or other medical services for low-income seniors only exacerbates the challenges that we now face. The second population this budget places at increased risk are children and youth, including asylum seekers, whose families and youth represent hope for a Maine that welcomes newcomers with a passion for this country and a desire to contribute to its prosperity. In Maine, at our teen center, there are many unaccompanied asylum-seeking youth who need temporary help while awaiting the opportunity to work or to go to college. These are young people who have traveled here alone. For many, politics and violence have left them to fend for themselves. Like most of our ancestors, they are committed to the vision of America as a land where their hard work will be rewarded. They should be welcomed and provided support if they show up at our door. Finally, while acknowledging the work that DHHS has been doing to address the needs of some chronically homeless individuals, the resources to meet the needs of individuals with mental illness continue to lag far behind the demand. We recommend more investment in evidence-based practices and programs that work, and that will ultimately save the state money. Cuts to emergency services and targeting the service centers will only lead to more homelessness and more suffering. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Bradley, very much for being here with us tonight. Representative Grant has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to ask you, since you are so involved in this issue of homelessness, I know there are broader issues, and you folks have studies and materials that I think would be helpful to us, so if you have some things that, for our work session so that we could kind of look at what are some of the broader solutions to homelessness, that would be great. But
Sure.
again, it's been posited by the administration that GA, if we cut GA, that there's better ways to address these issues. I'm still waiting to be enlightened by that. But do you think that the nonprofit organizations have the capacity across the state, particularly in the service areas, to come to the task if this is cut?
I can only speak for what we see in Portland for sure, and obviously everywhere. In Portland, we're seeing close to 300 people a night in the city shelter. We, Preble Street, where I work, is supporting some additional overflow beds, that's 75 mats, and we have sometimes 60 and 70 people sitting in chairs. Could we absorb that? Not without the same support that the city is getting and more to do it right. At this point, I know there are very few communities that have overflow plans and a commitment like Portland to house everybody. So we know that people are being turned away from shelters all over the place, and currently that many shelters are at risk of closing. As has been said by others, it's not clear to us that GA is the way to fund shelters, but it is one of the only ways we get support from the state. There's almost no money going into providing this basic need, keeping people safe and off the streets. So if there was another mechanism that made more sense, I think we'd certainly be open to that. There are a lot of states that we know of that do have funds that are particularly targeted to emergency shelter or case management emergency services that don't exist in this state.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.